Hello, I think we're live. Once again, it's Tuesday night at 7 o'clock. So if you're watching on our Christchurch Orchard Park Facebook page or YouTube or wherever you're tuning in from, it's good to see you again. Thanks for joining us for what we call Food for 15 minutes. Food for 15. Food for thought for 15 minutes. Tonight, I have got another accent with me. If you've been following these, you will have noticed that we like to work through the accents. So I've got Matt all the way from Stockton. Good to see you, mate. How are you doing?
I'm all right, Rob. Thanks. Just for clarification, I'm from Stockton now, but my accent's from Sunderland. So just in case anybody gets confused.
That's true. Well, let's talk about that for a second then. You happen to be a Sunderland fan. The reason why I want to talk about this is because it's relevant for tonight's subject. And I was, but how's things with Sunderland anyway? Before we get into that.
Well, if you'd asked us before Christmas, I'd have said terrible. But in the last couple of months, it seems to have turned a corner with a new owner and a new manager and finally winning some games. So good at the minute, feeling quite positive, but I wasn't about 3 months ago.
Fair enough. I noticed that you're 3 places behind Hull City. So
we are, yeah, 3 places behind, 2 games in hand. Yeah.
There you go. I know. I'm going to admit I don't know much about football. I know more about the rugby league in Hull, but there you go. But it is interesting because in relation to tonight's subject, I was thinking about this earlier. With football and with any of this stuff, I kind of think like we're all hoping, aren't we, for success? And City have had success, but we've just like dropped. We're doing well in League One, but we just don't know. And I was thinking, when it comes to football, we just don't know what's going to go on, and we don't know whether the team's going to do well. We just, Hull City were all right a few years ago, and now look at us back in League One. Gone kaput. You don't know if you're going to go bust. But my question for tonight is, because I know you run a church up in Stockton like me in Hull, and here's a question that some people have. Isn't the church just going to fizzle out? That's what I want to talk about. Isn't the church just going to fizzle out? I heard a statistic the other day that someone reckons the church is going to die out completely by 2060. Have you heard that before?
No, I haven't, but
apparently 2064, we're going to be extinct.
Right.
I don't think you believe that. I don't think I believe that. So we'll chat about that in a bit. But the first, I just wanted to ask you, in terms of where you are in Hardwick, Stockton, what issues tend to come up for you that mean kind of people do stay away from church? Because there is this impression that church is dying, it's irrelevant, kind of it's not doing anything. What is it that is meaning people aren't really flocking to church at the moment, in your opinion?
Yeah, I mean, one of those things you've mentioned there. So some people just think it's irrelevant, doesn't have really any bearing on their life, or if it does, they think it'll have a negative bearing, so they'll just they'll stay away. There's a lady who we talk to locally who has been along to things we've done, but not actual church service, but has dabbled with other things where we've had like craft groups and I brought grandson to toddlers and that kind of stuff. But one of the reasons she has personally for not coming is kind of negative experiences in the past, either for her or for family members, not necessarily with our church, but with church in general. So those negative experiences are just a big hurdle in her mind of kind of crossing the threshold into the building. So that would be one thing. The irrelevance thing, not particularly where we are, but there would be others who would say, well, but science is kind of giving us the answers for everything else, so why do I bother needing the church? They seem to be in conflict with each other. Some people just think it's a bit outdated. I mean, some of the current debates and kind of hot topics in culture, the church gets painted as like, bigoted or narrow or whatever, usually because it's been caricatured by somebody wrongly. But those things, I think, throw into the mix as well. But I think often negative experiences or things that they've just heard and taken as read, never looked into them themselves. But there's a lot of people who would just hear something and say, "Oh, well, that's it. I'm not touching that with a barge pole."
Yeah. When it comes to this like general irrelevance, like what do you say to how do you try and show people that the church is relevant? I've got an idea of what I would be doing, and it might get us straight to the point a little bit, but like that general feeling of people don't even often know why it's irrelevant. It just feels like
it just feels it.
Different. Yeah. Like, what do you do? What are you trying to do to say actually that's not the case?
I think you try and engage people, engage the community in different ways. Put on things maybe they wouldn't expect you to put on. Build up relationships. I think sometimes it's a visibility thing. People look at it and go, well, all the people go in there and not like me, therefore it must be for me. That will be another reason I think people stay away. So I think it's you have to start to break down some of those misunderstandings, really. But it just takes time. I don't think you can magically do it overnight. And I don't think kind of then thinking, okay, what's culture doing? Let's do what culture are doing, but in a churchy way. I don't think that works, but people see through that as well. I think in an ideal world, the church should be, or at least the way Jesus speaks about the church should be, and therefore we should be aiming for, is an attractive community, because it's a community where people genuinely love each other. In a way that is deep and meaningful and practical. And so, and ultimately, as those who are ministers, it's because we believe the gospel, we believe the good news about Jesus, that then we live that way, or that's how it should be. And so the church should be that community, really, and that's what be attractive in itself.
It's interesting you talk about the community and the people, because I mean, it's a bit glib to say it, in it, but the church in a building, it's the community, and people kind of you've heard that before. But it's interesting. I was talking to a lady the other day outside our church who actually came to church, but just beforehand we were talking, and she doesn't normally come to church, and she was saying, the thing is, people wouldn't come here because they're going to feel judged, and I kind of said to her, so why are you stood here talking to me? And it was interesting because her experience, so there's this kind of irrelevance, there's this kind of negative thing, like I'm going to be judged. But I said, but you're talking to me right now, aren't you? So why is that? And it's interesting because actually once she'd encountered me and realized actually, all right, yeah, we believe something as a church, and yeah, we've got reasons to believe it, and yeah, we're confident about what we say and all of this stuff, and yeah, we believe in rights and wrongs and all of this stuff. But actually, like, I was just talking to her like a human being. Actually, me and Emma were just showing her some normal love, like you show anybody. And she responded to that really well. But her kind of perception was, oh, well, I'm going to be judged, and other people. So it's quite interesting. And what about then, like, so obviously that's why people are maybe staying away from churches. There is this perception that maybe the church is just going to fizzle out. And like, what is it that gives you confidence then, as a church leader? You're not a vicar, you're not even a priest. We'll just call you a pastor. But my mates and we laugh about this because we call ourselves pastors. That's the correct term, isn't it? But it depends how you spell it. What is it that gives you confidence that the church isn't going to fizzle out, that we're not going to be a dying breed, and that 2064 or whoever it was that said it, we're still going to be around?
I guess the first thing is that because it doesn't rely on me and you. So not just us personally, but it doesn't rely on ministers. Do you know, if it's our church, then it's going to go pear-shaped pretty quickly. But it's because it's God's church, and so actually, he's the one who said he will build his church. He's the one who has said that the way he will make his message known is through people proclaiming the good news, telling people about Jesus. That's how the church will grow. That's how it will stay and be maintained and be strengthened. And so actually, if he said he's going to do that because of who I believe God is in terms of what he's said about himself in the Bible, then actually the stability and strength and growth of the church is not in my hands, it's in his. And so why do I think it's not going to die out? Because it's not my church, it's God's, is the simple answer.
No, that's a good argument. It's interesting as well, isn't it? I think, like, when you look at you talk about like football teams, and even the teams that have been going for 100 years, some of them do go kaput, or some of them do badly, and they just run themselves. They were doing well, but now they're in like some league I've never heard of before. But with the church, you look at the evidence of that on paper, like in history, of what you've said, that God is promised to do that. That's who he is. And actually it's been through so much, and yet it's still here. And then you look at what God is doing in parts of the world where it's insane to be a Christian. I think this is often what I look at and go, wow, there's something about this. There's something about the life-changing nature of Jesus that means people stick with him even when they're getting locked up, battered and bruised, because God is at work there. God's doing something. And
so I think that's the thing, isn't it? So people might look and say, well, the church is in decline in the UK, and it might well be. That might be a fair point to make. But the picture around the rest of the world is not the same. Do you mean there's a lot, like you say, there's evangelical Christians that's growing in South America. It's even growing in places like Iran and China and, you know, other places where you wouldn't think about necessarily Christianity even being a thing. Actually, there's a lot of people becoming Christians in those places. So that it might be declining here. It might even be declining in America. It might be declining in Europe as a whole. But in other parts of the world, it's not. And so ultimately, God's church is a worldwide thing as opposed to just a local thing. It has both elements to it. But ultimately, God has said he will build his church, and nothing, not even the gates of hell, will be able to stand against it. So, the confidence lies in God, not in me or anybody else for that matter.
And I don't know about you, but like I know what I see is maybe it's not in massive numbers today, and maybe there's loads of reasons for that. But what I see is when people do, because really the church is just the church isn't the main thing. And you kind of already said this. What we're talking about is like Jesus Christ, and I've talked on here before about why we take him seriously and why we should take him and why we can take him seriously. So we'll chat more about that with, you know, if people want to know reasons for that. But what I see happening is when people come to Jesus, like lives are changed, and you see God at work in people in such amazing ways. And it isn't like, we're not talking, you know, we're not got thousands of people at the moment that has happened in the past. But you do see God changing people in a way that you think. I was talking to a lad actually the other day who said to me, you know what, I tried up and I've done all sorts of things, and you know, nothing would work. You know, it was only this that would work. So quite interesting. What then? Just like, because we're running out of time now, but what is your parting comment then? And like, if someone on Hardwick where you are said to you, why should I bother? What would be like the one thing you would say to them? I'll have a go at this as well.
What's the one thing I'd say to them? I guess that meeting Jesus is life-changing because he gives hope, not just for this life, but for eternity. That actually there's much more to the life and the universe than just the here and now. And so actually you've got to think about that. We've just been preaching through a book in the Old Testament in the Bible called Ecclesiastes. And one of the main points of Ecclesiastes is to really live life properly and well, you need to live it in the light of death, that death is a reality. And, you know, in one sense, we should be more aware of that in the last 12 months than ever. And actually only Christianity gives hope in the face of death, and nothing else does. So something like that.
You nicked my answer. You nicked my answer.
Well, there you go. And that was all planned as well.
I'd recommend people come along or tune in to us at Christchurch Orchard Park on Sunday, because we're talking about this issue of, you know, and it's so relevant for a lot of us. And actually, we don't like to think about it because we don't like to think about the deep stuff often, but actually it hits us all. And this question of death and what happens, 1 Thessalonians, if you're interested, Matt, 4 and 5, but what is happening, and why can we be sure that Christianity holds up? Because I think often what I've realized just thinking about it this week is we are built for hope. So we will look for hope somewhere. And even in atheism, there is still a desire for hope. Listen to atheists, and what the clever sciencey atheist people say is, well, they're all really optimistic that we're going to conquer death one day. That's what they're saying. Like, we're going to get there. We're going to get there. We're going to do it. Ultimately, death is the final thing. You can't beat it. But there's something solid about Christianity that says, no, you really can. And it really has been done in real history. And that's why the church grew in the first place. So I would agree with you. Like, what is our hope in life and death? Ultimately, only Jesus. So and people can then argue with me about that, and we can talk about that a lot more. But if I wanted to make a statement so that you're going to argue with me and find out some answers, then Anyway, we've run out of time, so I'm going to stop live stream. Thanks everyone for joining, and do check out any of the other stuff we've got going on. If you've got kids and families, then young children, Easter competition, you'll see the details about it online. So get involved in that. That'll be great for you. And we'll see you all next time. Cheers.